So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, today we're going to continue the parts about Surah An-Nisa. And of course, we're doing Surah An-Nisa. And yesterday, we really left off at these ayat right there. يا أيها الذين آمنوا يا أيها الذين أوتوا الكتاب آمنوا بما نزلنا مصدقا لما معكم من قبل أن نطمس وجوها فنردها على أدبارها أو نلعنهم كما لعنا أصحاب السبت وكان أمر الله مفعولا. Now, a couple of things. Of course, we did actually say here, as you know, when we were reading ولكن لعنهم الله بكفرهم فلا يؤمنون إلا قليلا, and we did mention that certain behaviors actually bring in the la'na or the curse, or bring in that the person would be determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not deserving not deserving the Lord Almighty's mercy, not deserving his provisions, not deserving his mercy on Judgment Day, not deserving. So even the things that they might actually make dua for in this dunya. Let's say a person might actually be going through an illness that they will not actually get the dua answered, or at least they would not get the healing because of a sin, a major sin that they had committed. Now, one thing I thought it would be a good idea to actually go through the different things that basically would, or at least the hadith that had mentioned that a person, by committing that they would be destined to la'na wal-'iyadhu billah. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I thought it would be a good idea to share the screen that already did the job for us. And this website, you could see right there, it's called luca.net. I think they did an outstanding job. I go to it frequently because they basically did the job for you. So they would have all these articles already there, very well done, absolutely very well reviewed as well. And I thought, hey, why don't I just, since they made the story easy, let me just go over some of the things. So we said illana basically is to be expelled from the Lord Almighty's mercy. And we also said it's basically to be expelled as well from the level of the abrar and the salihin, the highest level of the pious ones, or at least those that are considered at the level of saints, of course. And in that situation, if the person was expelled from the area of mercy, that simply means that they are left to be with shaitan. They are basically supported by shaitan, and without them recognizing, they're going to be let's say controlled by shaitan. And it's really important to mention that because if we don't actually look into the things that do get us within that parameter, we might actually be going in it. So this beautiful article, they basically did a fast job, and they just put out all the different things that were mentioned to leading to la'na, or getting a curse by the Prophet ﷺ or by the Quran. And basically, lined them up, and we're going to get to that right here. So of course, can we actually do la'na? Now, a couple of things is that if a person engages in any of such behaviors, it doesn't mean that we could do la'na on that person. That's basically a different thing. We could do la'na on the behavior, but not necessarily on the person. Well, scholars actually also had differences of opinions on if we had known that a person had committed such a behavior, on whether we can actually pinpoint that person. In other words, let's say we have somebody that like Benjamin Netanyahu right there, in where he's killing and committing genocides, etc. Can we actually say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do la'an on him, etc.? So even though we're specifying a specific person, now the general answer is yes, you can, because this person this person had actually committed what the Prophet ﷺ himself had actually said would ensure that and determine that the person is going to be included within a la'n. All right. So unless the person did not deserve the la'n, then a la'na itself would actually be ascended. And if the la'na, the person is not to be deserving that la'na, then it will come back on the person that had actually made the la'na. All right, we're going to talk about that in just a bit. Now, in general, of course, when we're speaking about major sins, all right, Ibn Taymiyyah, he actually said, اللعن لا يكون إلا على معصية بل لا يكاد يلعن إلا على فعل كبيرة إذ الصغيرة تقع مكفرة بالحسنات. So basically, that اللعن would only be on different sins that are considered to be within the major sins. But the minor sins, they're not actually included within اللعنة. So why? Because the minor sins, they would be wiped or let's say deleted by the other good things that someone might do. So every single deed that we're actually going to be talking about, it's going to be included within the major sins. So if I were to have any action that is mentioned as the person is mal'oon, that would simply mean that that is a major sin. So any action, whether the Quran had mentioned or the Hadith had mentioned that this action leads to hellfire, or this action leads to la'na, or this action leads to uquba, or some kind of a punishment on Judgment Day, that would actually mean this is a major sin, that this is a major sin. It's important to mention these points. Let's see the dangers of actually doing lan. I like this page because it also states out all the hadith, and that way, even if somebody speaks in English, you could see the hadith right in front of you, so you could actually get used to reading the hadith and at least learning how to break down the words right there. So Ibn Abbas, he basically said, أن رجلا لعن الريح. So a man basically cursed the wind, and a Muslim basically, and the wind just blew away his own cloak, and that man basically cursed the wind. So the Prophet ﷺ said, do not curse it, for it is an ordered thing. In other words, it's an ordered natural thing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whoever would curse anything that is not deserving the curse, the la'na or the curse would actually come back to them. Let's do it again. So we've got a person doing a curse, whether it's a wind, whether it's a table, and using words like damn this or damn that, or just the word damn, or even a curse. And if that thing doesn't deserve the curse, it would actually come back to you, even if it's a wind, even if it's a table, even if it's a car that didn't want to open, etc., that would actually come back to you. Let's see. You could see right there, and where this hadith is actually narrated by Abu Dawud. This is the number. Tirmidhi, this is the number. And of course, when you look at a Sahih, that actually tells you Al-Albani was a great scholar, originally from Albania, but lived in Syria, had regarded it as an authentic hadith. And of course, I would say he is not appreciated by many, but it's really sad that we have scholars that many times people do not appreciate all the work that they had actually done. Let's see. The Prophet said in another hadith, whoever curses anything that is not befit for that curse, the la'na would come back to them as well. Now, some of the sins that would basically determine that the person deserves a la'na, number one is the person cursing their parents, or changing the different, let's say the different borders, the different borders for different, let's say you own a land, And then in order to expand your area of the land, you start changing the borders, and in order to expand your area, that also would mean you're taking somebody else's property. So by changing those borders, or by even cursing your parents, that's basically ensuring that the person is actually, there's another hadith where it actually says that it's changing tukhum al-ard. So tukhum al-ard is really here manar al-ard as well, in where it's changing the area by fabricating new borders in order to expand your area of property. The other thing is ذبح لغير الله, which basically means to slaughter for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, let's see this hadith. Abu Tufail, now this Sahabi, Abu Tufail Amir ibn Wathila, is the last Sahabi to die. Last Sahabi to die. So basically, he was 7 years old when the Prophet ﷺ died. And he remembers that the Prophet ﷺ was standing up in Arafah. He remembers the Prophet ﷺ, and yes, he wasn't necessarily too old, but he was the youngest Sahabi at the time, I guess, and the last to die. You know this name. All right. So he said, I was with Ali ibn Abi Talib, and a man came to him, that is, came to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he said, the Prophet ﷺ, or the man said to the Prophet ﷺ, is there anything that the Prophet ﷺ had made a secret, or basically just kept with you? So he got really angry, and he said, the Prophet ﷺ never whatsoever made any secret to basically keep it away from people. In other words, he didn't hide something with me and basically not tell it to the people. It's like, because that's a way to to basically say that they're considering that the Prophet ﷺ was probably keeping some kind of a secret about the religion. So that's why Ali ibn Abi Talib got so angry, and he said the Prophet ﷺ never actually kept any secret from the faith and hid it from everyone else. And he said, but the Prophet ﷺ did actually give me 4 words. And he said, what are they? And he said, number 1, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed whoever curses his parents. 2, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed whoever would slaughter other than the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 3, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed whoever accompanies or at least hides those that are deserving the punishment for a sin that they had committed. 5, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses those that would change the borders within the earth. And of course, we're talking about property here, unless there was a reason to change it to mean that they probably now own both lands and they're not here forging some kind of a border in order to lie about something. Number 4, zawarat al-qubur, those that are visiting frequently al-qubur. Now here's one thing, or graves, of course. For this hadith, I'm not going to go in so much detail. I'll just, make the story short, because the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, let's look at this hadith. So Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan ibn Thabit. Hassan ibn Thabit was actually one of the Sahaba who was known to be in the Prophet ﷺ's poet. And of course, Abdul Rahman is his son. He basically said, La'ana Rasulullah sallam zawarat al-qubur, that the Prophet sallam had actually cursed the women that frequently visit graves. Now, scholars actually had, let's see, 18, the scholars actually, let's see, the Sakat alayhi al-Hakim, and you could see right there that he said, well, hadithu fihi maqal. So some scholars actually regarded that this hadith has, let's say, some controversy in regards to its authenticity. Al-Albani here basically said that it would be authentic, but of course, because he had other supporting narrations to support that hadith, and he basically mentioned that in a book, Irwa al-Ghalil. Irwa al-Ghalil is a very important book, and it really needs to be put out there in public. It's almost 12 volumes, almost 12 volumes. It's in a black copy, and a very important book. Anyhow, so the part about visiting graves, there are actually numerous reports. So the first report is that the Prophet ﷺ actually forbid the Sahaba from visiting the graves. And later, when I guess they stopped using the graves as some type of a temple or shrines or the ideology itself or the ideas and the way that they had perceived the graves was not the same way that they used to during their jahiliyyah. So the Prophet ﷺ forbid them at one point from visiting graves. And then the Prophet ﷺ later said, كنت قد نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور ألا فزوروها. I had forbid you previously from visiting the graves, then now do visit it. And he explained, فإنها تذكركم بالآخرة, for it reminds you of the hereafter. In other words, it's a spiritual reminder. It takes you into recognizing where you're heading to, the purpose of life, that this is where you're going to end in. It's a way of reminding you of your own destination. So this hadith in where the Prophet ﷺ said that women that frequently visit the graves, some scholars, they actually said, so there's the first opinion, some scholars actually said, well, this is not to say about frequently visiting graves, but this is also to say whether the women are frequently visiting the graves or whether they're basically visiting graves that women were not recommended to visit the graves, and this hadith proves it. So that's the first opinion. The first opinion said women are not supposed to be visiting graves, and this hadith, even if it talks about as a numerous visitation, if a numerous visitation is not recommended, or at least it is as going as far as being cursed, well, that would actually mean that even if we're talking about the partition of a visitation, that would be included in at least making it a sin. That's the first opinion. The second opinion, they said, well, you're actually taking this hadith out of context. The context is that the women, when they used to visit the graves, they used to engage in some drama. They would rip up their clothes, they would let their hair loose, and they would start screaming and beating themselves and using this kind of a, let's say, an extensive at least and exaggerated emotional expression. And then they said, well, what would be forbidden is if they were to visit the graves and engage in such behaviors. All right, engaging in such behaviors, that's what's actually meant by zawarat al-qubur. This is talking about a particular behavior, particular action that is done in al-qubur. Number 3, the third opinion basically said, well, this is not talking about any of that. This is basically speaking about the women that are frequently visiting and not necessarily to visit one time or 2 times or 3 times or even once in a while, because they considered that they're actually included in the general order that was for the Sahaba, in where he basically said, Kuntu qad nahaytukum, I had forbid you from visiting graves. And they said forbid you would actually mean that it was referring to the men and women. And therefore, it's not exclusive to the men, and certainly women as well. فإنها تذكركم بالآخرة. Women are also included, that when they would visit the graves, it would basically be something that would rejuvenate their iman, their faith, rejuvenate their relationship with the final destination, the hereafter, etc. And therefore, they're actually included. And for this hadith, they basically considered that this hadith is referring to the women that are frequently doing these constant visitations and engaging in what is not considered as the the adab or the manners of grave visitation. Now, what is the preponderant? Preponderant is, wallahu a'lam, that it is permissible to visit the graves even for women, but what was not permissible is engaging in these dramatic types of behaviors and ripping the clothes and screaming and engaging in some kind of a self-beating, etc. That's basically what is haram. Because whether it's women or whether it's men, to just have this physical connection between you and the deceased, it really does rejuvenate your iman. It just like in the hadith it was saying, in where it was including men and women. فَإِنَّهَا تُذَكِّرُكُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ. And of course, there's nothing in that hadith in where to make it exclusive to men. So we would see that in general, all the orders in the Quran, if they were within the wording of male, for example, that women are to be included within the order. Same thing if we're talking about the forbiddenness of a certain behavior. Even if the discourse was directed at men or at women, unless it was basically directing it directly at women, just like hijab. We're not going to be saying men are included in this because the wording of the ayat is basically right there, directing its words to women alone. So if the wording is even in even in the wording of it is seeming that it's basically referring and talking to the men, women are to be included, and what they would be excluded in, if there's another hadith that is excluding them in a particular way, just like zawarat al-qubur, in where it didn't necessarily say any woman that visits the grave. It was basically zawarat al-qubur, and it was basically in another hadith explaining they're basically the women that do not engage in that adab. So that's another thought. Number 5 is that the person that takes in interest and usury. Now, one thing to mention is that when we're talking about interest, and of course, the person that takes in the interest, that charges the interest, the person that is writing the interest, and the person that is witnessing that contract. The Prophet ﷺ basically said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Prophet ﷺ, had actually cursed the person that takes in the the usury, and the person that, even the person that's giving the interest. So it doesn't mean that only the person that's taking in the interest, but no, you accepted and you paid interest, that actually means you're included within a lana, even if you are paying the interest, even if you're consenting to it. And of course, the person that is writing it and the person that is documenting that interest contract, or the contract that contains usury in it, and even those that are working as not only as the ones to document it, but even those that are witnessing the contract. And here the Prophet ﷺ says, "Wahum sawa," and they're all at the same level of basically deserving curse. You could see this hadith is basically narrated by Muslim and Ahmad. Those are the resources for it. Let's continue right there. In there, al-muhall wal-muhallal lah. Now, what is that? So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud actually mentioned that the person, so let me explain this one a little bit. So basically, when a woman goes through divorce, okay, and if the man were to divorce the woman, divorce 1, 2, and 3, then she cannot go back to her husband, all right, unless she would basically get married to another man. But this is not engaging in a prior agreement. So this is not to harm the woman, but this is basically to move on with her life. And even the man that divorced the woman, that he would also take in consideration that you will be losing your wife forever. Okay, you will be losing your wife forever. She'll basically move on with her life and get married to another man, because all you have is 3 divorces. So man up and use your words wisely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the ability, gave you the privilege to basically make and initiate a divorce. So hopefully you will man up and use it wisely. So in situations where probably they might think, well, let's speed up the process and have this woman get married to another man and basically get divorced, get her a divorce later on, and just in order to find the avenue to get her back to her ex. That's basically what this hadith is referring to. This kind of a sham, this kind of a scam, this kind of a game on Sharia. So whether the person that is getting married to the woman, in other words, the second guy that's getting married to the woman, or whether the guy, the ex basically, that went into this type of agreement, both are actually mal'oon. Both and all, and including the woman, if she knows about this, they're all in a place of lana. In fact, in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ called him at-tays al-musta'ar. At-tays al-musta'ar basically means the rented bull. The rented bull. So all of this type of scamming, all of this type of gaming is actually haram in Islam. The number 7, the Prophet ﷺ, let's see, Sa'id ibn Jubair. Now, Sa'id ibn Jubair is one of those tabi'i, not sahabi, but tabi'i. And he basically passed by Ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, and there were young boys from Quraysh, in where they had basically put up some nets and basically to catch birds, and they would start putting some targets in order to target that bird. In other words, they were using some kind of a target and trying to see who can kill the bird first. All right, so some of them, they basically didn't catch the birds, and of course they were just playing games with that bird. So when Ibn Umar ibn Khattab, he saw this, they basically ran away and started hiding away. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, who did this? The Prophet ﷺ, or لعن الله من فعل هذا. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse whoever had done this. The Prophet ﷺ had said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed whoever takes anything that has a soul as a target. In other words, it's not for a hunting reason, but it's basically for playing games, whether they're trying to catch birds or whether it's trying to catch, I don't know, squirrels, whatever it is. They're just trying to hit different animals, trying to target them just for the fun of it. That basically this is a cursed behavior, unless they're using it for hunting. So if the person is going to be eating it later on, then that's a different story. من يسم في الوجه. So الوسم في الوجه is basically to somehow use heat. So burning, it's kind of like cauterization. The person is using heat on the face, in whether it's for the human beings or whether it's for animals, in order to assign something to, probably, they would use it on animals, like let's say the letter A or the letter T or whatever it is, or put a name or put a logo on such animals by basically doing that cauterization. And the Prophet ﷺ had actually said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed man yasimu fil wajh, whoever would do this type of heating or this type of cauterization on the face. So same thing if we're talking about things like face peeling, or what they would right now do in terms of putting some kind of an acid, some kind of a chemical on the face in order to peel one side of the face, and then to take away at least some of probably the scars on the face, or etc. This type of peeling, is actually a type of la'na, deserving a la'na, and it's a type of peeling the face and harming with heat the face or any part of the body. Well, that's the same thing when we're talking about changing the body. Remember, the ahadith, numerous ahadith were emphasizing, just as the ayah was warning people that shaitan would basically use the method of changing the person's creation in order to get to their inner creation. In other words, getting to their heart. So using methods, fillers, Botox, changing maybe their face lifting, lip lifting, lid lifting, all these things are actually part of what shaitan would use in order to let the person's focus just be on their appearance and not their inner soul, not their heart. That's why that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quoted about shaitan, وَلَأَمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلْيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ, and I will order them to change the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because that's the method that he's going to use to get to your inner self. Now, here's one thing, is that there are numerous ahadith, so whether it's changing the face, and we're going to talk about some of the other things and where some of the other things that the Prophet ﷺ had actually mentioned in terms of changing the person's appearance and changing the creation itself. Unless that reason was for a medical reason, then that's a different story. So for a medical reason, whether we're talking about because of a deformity that happened, or whether because the person was created with this deformity, then the person can actually change or do a surgery, or if it's Botox that heals it, or at least cures at least the appearance in that situation, then it would be permissible. What's the evidence? The evidence is that there was a Sahabi. He basically had a nose basically had his nose amputated in one of the battles. And because, of course, the appearance of somebody's nose being amputated really makes you look very undesirable, the least to say. So what he did was bring I guess like an image, or at least like a little piece that looked like a nose, and attached it to his face, basically to make it like seem like it's a nose. But it seemed that this, of course, silver was starting with the body fluids and all of that was starting to get into an action and started creating pus. And certainly silver was going to start basically going into that effect with the body fluids and the acids and all of that and the nasal discharge. So it started creating a smell, it started creating pus, and definitely it wasn't actually doing well. So the Prophet ﷺ permitted to the Sahabi that he would actually replace it with a golden nose. Okay, so a golden nose, even though gold is actually forbidden on men to wear, but because of the situation. So here you could see that the Prophet ﷺ had permitted for a medical reason, and also not because he wanted to look good, but it was to heal a deformity. So in that situation, healing a deformity, whether you were born with a deformity or whether it was due to a trauma, then that is permissible. Number two is that what if I'm not basically happy with my nose shape, with my lips? It's affecting me psychologically. And is this going to be considered it's causing me a deformity? I'm constantly depressed because of my appearance. I don't like my nose. I think it's too big, or I think my body, or etc., or my lips, they need to be bigger. Everybody's always thinking that my lips are too tiny, they're too, etc. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, we're going to get to the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ actually said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed the women that do we're going to talk about that later on, but that do one, tattooing, that do the shaping of the eyebrows. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And number three, those that would sharpen and basically sharpen their teeth in a certain way. And he actually said, lil husn. What are they trying to do? They're trying to seek beautification, a level of beautification, a level of self gratification. And it's not that there's an actual deformity. So this hadith actually supports what we were talking about in terms of deformity. So if the person is saying, well, it's basically causing me to be depressed because my nose is not basically the right size. I feel that everybody that's standing in front of me is looking at my nose always, and it's basically making me feel out, standing out and not feeling well. This would not mean that your nose has a deformity. The deformity lies within. Your deformity is psychological deformity. Because if you're going to think that, oh, the shape of my nose is not comforting for me, and then it's not the problem, it's not going to be with your nose. You're going to continue going from one plastic surgery to another, because the problem is not with your nose. The problem is with your heart. The problem is with your self-confidence. The problem is with your own psychology. So that's where the problem is. If there isn't a deformity, then it would basically be haram to engage in any of these types of plastic surgeries or even cosmetical surgeries. The other part is that doing any form of categorization, of course, to the animals. So the Prophet ﷺ had actually passed by a donkey, and this donkey basically had some kind, of course, that he was categorized in his face, and it's really clear that that animal's nose, that donkey's nose was bleeding from the amount. And the Prophet ﷺ actually said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed whoever had done this. And he basically forbid anybody from doing that that categorization in the face, or even slapping on the face, This is the hadith that I wanted to talk about earlier, in where the Prophet ﷺ, you could see this hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that لعن الله الواشمات والمتوشمات والمتنمصات والمتفلجات للحسن المغيرات خلق الله. Now, this hadith is basically the hadith that I was mentioning before, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed the women that would do tattoo to other women, or even have tattoo done to them, or even those that would do a nums. I'm going to talk about nums in just a bit. Okay. In other words, hair removal, but we're going to talk about hair removal in just a bit. Okay. And وَالْمُتَفَلِّجَاتِ لِلْحُسْنِ. And you know what? Let me take it one at a time. Okay. Let me first talk about this hadith, and then we're going to get to speaking about each one of these. So this quote, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed these women. I'm just gonna roughly say what the word is. Okay, mutanammisat but basically mean the women that do some kind of hair removal. Mutafallijat al-husn, basically sharpening the teeth. But there's more to it. Just hold on. So a woman from Bani Asad, her name was Yaqub. She came in to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he said, I heard that you said that the women that you had cursed, the women that do such and such. And he said, why wouldn't I curse what the Prophet ﷺ had cursed? And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed in his book. And she said, well, I read in between the two the two sides, in other words, from cover to cover from the Quran, I didn't see what you were talking about. And he said, well, if you had really read it, then you would have found it. Did you not read وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا, and take in and embrace what the Prophet ﷺ had come to you with, and what he had forbid you from doing, that you would entirely leave? I said, yeah, I read that. He said, well, I فإنه قد نهى عنه. The Prophet ﷺ had actually forbid engaging in such actions. And I saw فإني أرى أهلك يفعلونها. And he said, sorry. And she said, well, I see your people, in other words, your wife is actually doing it. And he said, go and see if they're doing it. So she went to see whether his wife is actually doing this type of hair removal that he was talking about. And she said, well, she didn't find anything. And he said, if she were to do that, I would not have actually been in bed with her, basically. And I want you to look at here, right here, in al-washima, tattooing is really clear. So tattooing, whether this is permanent or whether this is temporary tattooing, it would basically be included within this lana. Okay, tattooing is really clear. So whether it's the colorful kind, unless it was for medical reasons, okay? For medical reasons, for example, when somebody, this is just an example, okay, when they would do radiology, when they would have certain when they would go through cancer, sometimes they would actually have the radiology actually do some kind of a therapy through radiology, and they would basically put a little mark on their body, and it's actually tattooing. It's a tattoo in where, just so that they would not mistake exactly where that process was done in. So that's a different story, okay? Or even if we're talking about for healing a deformity, that's also a different ruling. All right, for nums, pay attention. I'm not going to go into details with this one. So in nums, the bodily hair, at least for women, actually goes in different categories. There's one that's permissible to remove. Bodily hair permissible to move. Legs, hands, maybe back, stomach, whatever it is. Okay, those are actually permissible to remove. Whether you were using waxing, whether you were using laser, whether you were using I don't know, shaving, all of those are permissible to use. I'm just making the story short. There's a lot more detail, on how scholars actually had differences of opinions, and some of them actually said you can't use shaving because they actually thought that that was making the hair grow more, and not knowing that it's not that the hair is growing more, it's that when you're cutting the hair, you're basically cutting the hair from one side, but not necessarily removing from the hair follicle, or at least the hair follicle is still there, but you're not necessarily removing all the hair. So all these different types are permissible. Yet, to have somebody do it in the private area, all right, so whether we're talking about Brazilian waxing, etc., that would be haram to be done by other than yourself and your husband. So your mother cannot do it for you. Some kind of a I don't know, shop or whatever it is, or what, I don't know what they call those places. It would be impermissible to have a woman or a man certainly do it for you, whether that was some place or whether it was your relative. It would be haram to be done, whether that was called a laser or whether that was through waxing. It would be haram for anybody to do it for you. Do you have to do it? The sunnah is to trim the pubic hair and not necessarily remove it completely. But if you desired to remove it completely, well, good luck. You want to do it, it's up to you. It's not haram, but it's really up to you and your husband, I guess. But it is not permissible that the person would basically go to these clinics, or they'll call it clinics, okay, to actually have it done for them. All right, because الاطلاع على العورة and having somebody see your private area is not permissible unless for medical reasons. So medical reasons, you cannot compare the OB and her doing a pap smear or some kind of I guess a test, an exam for medical reasons is not comparable to doing for cosmetical reasons or for basically basically for synthetic reasons to appear in a different way, etc. Even if your husband approved it, your husband doesn't have the right to basically consider something as halal or haram. This is irrelevant to husband's consent or not consent. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order. So somebody looking at your aura is forbidden completely. So that's number one. We're talking about hair, bodily hair removal. So shaving your legs, whatever it is, that's up to you. Waxing, that's up to you. Number two is the areas that are sunnah to remove. And there are two things. Number one, there are certain hairs that are a sunnah to completely remove. In other words, to completely pluck. All right. And those are under the arm, underarm hair. That's a sunnah to completely pluck. Okay, that's a sunnah to completely pluck. And trimming is basically for the mustache, at least for men, and trimming the pubic hair for men and women. That's a sunnah as well. So those are the hairs that are sunnah to trim and plucking the underarm. What if the person is not capable of handling removing or at least plucking underarm hair? If you wanted to use shaving, that's permissible. If the other type is too what is the word, painful for you. Okay, that's too painful. You can use other methods. Can I use laser? Yes, you can use laser, and it's permissible to have it done for you because it's not a awra if it's a woman doing it for a woman, and certainly a man doing it for a man. The third type of hair is basically the area that has differences of opinions, and that's the facial hair. That's where numbs comes into, now we're going into different categories. For numbs, it's actually exclusive to facial hair. Yet, some scholars, opinion number one, considered that a nums is basically removing any facial hair, whether that actually means al-anfaqa, which is under the lip, or whether this is talking about all the beard, or whether this is talking about any facial hair whatsoever. Opinion number one. Opinion number two basically said, no, this is actually exclusive to eyebrow hair, only the eyebrow hair. So let's see, those that considered it exclusive to eyebrow hair, they too actually had differences of opinions on the level of what is permitted in the eyebrow hair. First opinion, now I want you guys to put in these categories. First opinion, for the eyebrow hair, they said what is impermissible, forbidden, is to remove all the eyebrow, and put some kind of microblading, some kind of tattooing, some kind of, I guess, with they're using pencils, eyebrow pencil, whatever it is, that's what is considered nums. Opinion number two, they've said, no, it's not necessarily to remove all the hair, but it's to basically shape the eyebrow. So anything that is considered as part of the eyebrow is basically going to be considered as nums if the person is removing the eyebrow, or whether the unibrow, they considered it as, well, this is nums. So if you're dealing with that hair, that's nums. So two opposite things. One said entirely complete, removing it entirely and replacing it with something else. And the second opinion said, no, anything, whether you're moving the unibrow or whether you're removing any hair from the eyebrow, that's basically That's basically what nums is, and therefore that's what's haram. But they didn't, those scholars, they basically considered that you can remove all the other hairs, whether you're getting a mustache as a woman or whether you're getting a beard. And they said that you can remove all the other hairs, but leave the eyebrows alone. Number three opinion, they basically said nums is basically to remove the actual or at least shaping the eyebrow. So whether you're removing the hairs that are up and the beyond the eyebrow, or whether at the lower, like kind of like the eyelid, they considered that that's permissible to remove, because that's not the eyebrow, that's the face. That's not the eyebrow. The eyebrow, they said, it's right there. We've got it shaped in a certain way. All the other hairs, the upper and the lower lid and what is on the forehead, they consider that that's not haram to remove, because that is not basically part of the eyebrow. The fourth opinion, they basically said to shape it in a certain way to somehow fit in a certain trend. Now, this one, to fit in a certain trend, and they said this would actually mean the whole idea was because this trend, it was a practice that was done by certain deviant women. They would do such practices in order to fit in, to gain attention, to basically be recognized by those that wanted to flirt with women, that these women are seeking attention and she's there ready for you. So Ibn Ashur had actually mentioned that any type of a trend that is practiced by deviant women in such a way that that would actually be included within this type of la'na, which is really interesting to say, because you could see that he didn't actually make this la'na exclusive to these particular actions, but he actually looked beyond these actions and considered that this is not exclusive to this, but this is actually including any type of a trendy behavior that becomes some kind of a way of attraction to a sign that you fit in with a certain category of deviant women. Let's go on. So what is the preponderant, wallahu a'lam, is that it's the third opinion that's preponderant. So removing what is not part of the eyebrow is permissible. Why? Because of a hadith of Sayyidah Aysha. This is not because I felt like saying this. There is a hadith for Sayyidah Aysha where a lady came to her and she said, what is permissible for me to remove? And Sayyidah Aysha said, Amiti anki al-adha mastatati. Remove what is harmful here as much as you can. In other words, whatever you want to remove, the harmful hairs, you could remove that. In other words, as long as you're not going within the area of a nums. So if it's not part of the eyebrow, you could actually remove it, whether you're removing it through laser, whether you're removing it through waxing, plucking, tweezers, etc. That's your choice of what you would want to use. المتفلجات للحسن, it was a common weird practice. I know it's right now in Japan, they would use that, in where they would blade and braid their teeth in a certain way in order to make their teeth look like they have like a separation in between their teeth to make them seem younger. Okay. I don't know why on earth anybody would think that that looks beautiful. You know, right now the Hollywood teeth is basically to have the full teeth and all of that. So even if the person is doing this Hollywood teeth, what, in order to get the Hollywood teeth, they would basically have to braid and blade these teeth and basically get some other material and basically fit it and stick it, literally stick it onto these teeth in order to make them feel and to make them look complete and be the Hollywood teeth. Unless the person,
I saw a sister before who had like a jewel on her tooth who was from Saudi.
Right. So this to have, I'll get to that one, Noura. So to braid the teeth, and in order to put these plastic things or whatever, I'll just use the word plastic, but I'm sure they're different material, porcelain, and all these different materials. So I'll just say they're, sticking something onto them. That would actually be haram to do as a procedure. So whether the person doing it or whether the person that it's done to them, unless the person had some kind of a deformity on their teeth, maybe they were extremely deformed, that they really needed to get the process done. That was the only way, then that's a different story. Okay. And of course, dentures are not included because dentures are basically to correct a deformity. So if a person has it, braces are not included. So braces are basically to heal a deformity, because this deformity, the the jaw and the teeth and the way that they're actually structured in your jaw, can also have its effect on your spine, because of the way that the way the teeth are basically lined up, can have an effect on your spine, effect on different areas of your body. So that's a different story. But at the end of the day, to correct the deformity using braces or using even the Hollywood teeth, if there was an actual deformity, not, oh, they're kind of yellow, they're kind of stained a little bit. And I tried to go to the different dentists and they tried to do all that cleaning, but I'm still not happy with the color, and I think I need to fit in. And then that's actually going at another level, and definitely not making it permissible. For the jewel that they would actually put on their teeth, all right, the jewel that they would put on their teeth, the ayah actually mentioned that وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنْ, that they should not reveal their beautification. So scholars then went into differences of opinions on revealing the beautification, whether we're talking about a simple beautification, like probably some kind of embroidery on your sleeve or on part of your hijab, or etc., or whether that actually means to put in some kind of foundation, some kind of slight makeup, or a heavy makeup, that, or even a jewel on your teeth or something like that, that's basically considered as revealing your beauty, which you were not supposed to be putting. Now the question is, what if this woman was a niqabi and she had a jewel on her teeth and didn't want to expose it? So don't get me within that. I just want to put a golden tooth. I don't really know how the process of putting a golden tooth goes. If the process is basically to just cover up the tooth, I don't see why they would think it's beautiful, but whatever. Then in that situation, it would be permissible to do. So it's kind of that they're putting like a layer, it's a thin layer on the tooth. It would be permissible for women to do. And unless for men, it wouldn't be permissible unless there was a deformity and the dentist what recommended that that's the best solution for that person. I don't know if there's such a thing, especially right now. The medical and dental technology is right now growing, and they're actually going really far with that. All right, so let's see. The quote, a very important quote, is when Abdullah ibn Mas'ud actually said, "And why should I not curse whoever the Prophet ﷺ had cursed?" And he basically quoted that part about that ayah, in where the Prophet ﷺ actually was, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told about him, or in regards to him, and whatever the Prophet ﷺ had come with. In other words, whether we're talking about coming with a revelation, or whether coming with obligations, or whether coming in with prohibitions, all of that must be embraced as part of your identity. And that's why the ayah was atakum, meaning the obligatory things, ma nahakum anhu, what he had forbidden you from doing, then completely leave and do not engage in. Now the other number 11. What time is it? We got Um, the other hadith, من أحدث حدثا أو آوى محدثا. Now, here's one thing. This is actually in regards to a person committing a sin, and then that person basically is then, let's say is then going to be uh, going to be punished for committing that particular sin. So to protect that person, to hide them, basically support this outlaw person, let's call it that way, and keeping them away from the government, from enforcing the law, would actually be considered a major sin in Islam. And we're not here talking about somebody that basically crossed a red light. We're talking about, all right, we're talking about someone that committed a sin like stealing, like zina, like killing. And of course, this is talking about something that Islam considers as an outlaw. Islam considers as a punishable law, sorry, a punishable sin. All right. So in that situation, that's what basically is that's basically is included in, if a person were to do that, basically give them أحدث حدثا أو آوى محدثا, basically keeping them saved, protecting them somehow, you know, helping them hide in some kind of a cave so they won't get punished for the sin that they had committed. In that situation, that basically would be considered that you too would also be mal'oon. You would be cursed in that situation. So, and let's see this hadith. So basically, Ali ibn Abi Talib, he said, "Al-mu'minuna takafa'u dima'uhum," that all the believers, their blood is equal. In other words, the blood, this is a metaphor to actually mean they have equal rights on their blood. In other words, equal rights on their lives. In other words, the sanctity of your life is equal to the sanctity of the life for somebody that is probably a police officer, or probably a person that is in the government. In other words, you're not regarded as of a less citizen or less right because you're at another, probably let's call it maybe social status or different status. No, that all the believers are basically on the same level of having their life to be regarded as protected. And if a person were to harm somebody else's life, that means the government should actually regard justice for the person, whether it's a beggar in the street, on the street, or whether the person that basically attacked this beggar on the street is some kind of a high official. It doesn't make that high official having some kind of a higher level, or basically getting away with this because the person that was attacked was probably a beggar on the street. At the end of the day, is that they're all equal in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes. And therefore, we would apply justice in the same way, and where they're all equal in the eyes of law. And of course, and they're all the Muslims are basically united against those that are their enemies. And of course, the one that is even the least in the social status is going to be also in basically in protection, and also to have the power to support the same thing as if we were to talk about a higher official. And Allah يقتل مؤمن بكافر. And if a mu'min, of course, if we were to have somebody that is not Muslim, we would not basically consider that, okay, well, a mu'min is to be killed for a kafir's life. In other words, a mu'min and a kafir, their life is not equal within the Muslim country. We'll talk about that later, inshallah. And of course, right here, فَعَلَيْهِ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whoever would engage in that, and of course, which also protecting the person that is deserving the punishment. And of course, the law enforcement, and we're talking about Muslim law enforcement. We're talking about a khilafah here. We're not talking about police officers in a secular government. All right. فَعَلَيْهِ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Those are the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would curse them, even the malaika and all the people. ظُلْمَ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ وَإِخَافَتِهِمْ. To oppress the people of Ahl al-Madinah and or even instilling fear in their heart. Let's look at this hadith. So the Prophet ﷺ actually said, Allahumma man zalama ahl al-Madinah wa akhafahum fa akhifhum wa alayhi la'nat Allah wal malaikati wan nas ajma'in la yaqbalu Allah minhum sarfan wa la adla. Look at this hadith. Ya Allah, the Prophet ﷺ making dua, Ya Allah, whoever oppresses the people of Medina or even brings fear into their hearts, and put your curse on them and even the curse of the angels and all the people on them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept from them not a repentance, not basically an obligatory action that they might actually perform, or even of a less degree, even if it's a nafil, even if it's a non-obligatory action that they might be doing. In other words, even an extra action, it would not be accepted from them. Let's look at this hadith. Al-Musawwir. Let's talk about al-Musawwir right there. عن عون بن أبي جحيفة. The name is Juhayfa. قال رأيت أبي رضي الله عنه اشترى, and I want you to look at this one. So basically he all right, so he basically it's like a cupping, and basically it got, well, actually it's a tool, all right, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he basically quoted نهى عن ثمن الدم وثمن الكلب وكسب الأمة ولعن الواشم والمستوشم وآكل الربا موكله ولعن المصور. Let's see, that the Prophet ﷺ actually said that he had forbid the money that is taken for blood. So what does that mean? The money that is taken, ثمن الدم, basically the person that is doing the cupping, they cannot actually take the money for that blood. Okay, so in replacement for blood. What about blood transfusion? We'll talk about that later on, inshallah. وثمن الكلب, and even the price of a dog. So there's, in Islam, it's haram to actually buy dogs unless we're talking about trained dogs, or those dogs for medical reasons. That's a different story. Okay, trained dogs and medical dogs and all of those are a different story. This is for a medical reason. Okay, but the kalb generally as a pet.
What about like a guard dog?
A guard dog is actually right there for a different reason. A guard dog is like a hunting dog. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But it's permissible. It's not permissible to have a price. So buying and thaman al-kalb and selling dogs and etc. is actually haram, unless, like we said, the medical dogs, or what are they called? They're not called medical dogs. What are they called? Forgot what they were called. But anyhow, kasb al-ama. Kasb al-ama, two differences of opinions between scholars on what is kasb al-ama. The first opinion, kasb al-ama, this is, let me explain. The word kasb is basically the income. Al-ama is basically the concubine. But of course, the concubine or the female slave is permitted if she wants to get a job outside of her slave job, and she just wanted to do an extra job outside, she can actually do that. And that money, so the first opinion said to actually abuse her and take her money. Let's say she started working at, I don't know, at a beauty salon. Okay, is that money for her, or is that money going to be for the master? That's where scholars had differences of opinions. And some considered that no, that job is for her, and that money is basically haram to take because that job is for her. Other scholars, they regarded that no, she's a slave, and therefore the job that, unless there was an agreement between her and her master, and he basically said, sure, you can work that job and you can get another job. That's absolutely fine, as long as you get your jobs at home done. That's all I need. You can then get another job and probably get yourself your own personal income. And in that situation, it would be haram to take her money. The second opinion, they basically said this hadith is naha, and of course, عن ثمن الدم ثمن الكلب كسب الأمة. This is actually relating to an exclusive type of behavior that was done by Abdullah ibn Jad'an. Who's Abdullah ibn Jad'an? So Abdullah ibn Jad'an was a guy from Quraysh. And at one point, this Abdullah ibn Jad'an had actually done a lot of virtuous actions in where he would free the young boys that were taken as slaves and basically give them basically a future rather than staying as slaves. But at the same time, Abdullah ibn Jad'an was also doing something extremely disgusting. He was taking women, and of course, young women, older women, etc., and making them work in prostitutions. And of course, whatever money they're making, he would be the one to take it. So some scholars regarded that, in other words, he had these slave women and he was making them work in prostitution. And that this hadith, Kasb al-Ama, is exclusive to what that ayah in where ولا تكرهوا فتياتكم على البغاء, and do not force your daughters into the daughters here is not the daughters per se, but this is in order to tell Abdullah ibn Jad'an and anybody that does that action that this is like your daughter. Why would you put her in such a situation for her to be somebody else's bed? Why would you put her in a situation where to be humiliated, to go into STDs and all of that, and to be somebody else's place of lust? And why would you put them in prostitution? Is it because, of course, getting some money, etc.? Why would you do such a replacement? So some scholars regarded that kasb al-ama is actually exclusive to putting slave women into doing some kind of an act of prostitution and then taking their money. And of course, لعن الله الواشم والمستوشمة, we talked about tattooing, and we also talked about riba, and we also talked about the person that whether gives riba or takes in riba. لعن الله المصور. Now, لعن الله المصور, there is another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ actually said, لعن الله المصورين, or المصورون, all right, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had actually cursed those, لعن الله المصور, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed those that would do التصوير. What is التصوير? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had cursed التصوير. Now, scholars had differences of opinions because the word sawara, taswir itself, sawara, comes from that root, which basically means to mimic. Okay? To mimic. And this is not to mimic in where I'm raising my hand, you're raising my hand like me. This is not mimicking in action, but this is actually mimicking in appearance. So, the first opinion, they basically said لعن الله المصور, that this is actually talking about sculpture making. And they considered that this is sculpture making only. Two, the other scholars, they said, no, this is sculpture making and also painting or any type of art where the person is actually mimicking what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created. And in the other hadith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had actually, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Prophet had actually mentioned that the person would be ordered to blow in it to bring it to life, and they would never be able to. But it's kind of like this is a type of torment. where the person is going to constantly keep on trying to blow, and that they're like lost out of breath, a type of torture that they'll be going through. The third opinion, they basically said, well, when you're basically, if you're making a design, so whether it's a sculpture, whether it's you're looking at a complete sculpture and or a complete art design that you're doing, if it's complete, in other words, complete shape, then that's what's haram. But if it's incomplete, then you had actually deformed it, and therefore it would be permissible. An eye, basically like uh, an image that you drew, but it's not complete. So that's the fourth opinion. Now, the question is, are photos included in this? Differences of opinions between scholars. The first opinion, they said, yes, it is included because simply it is a type of mimicking the image. Whether you mimicked the image in making a sculpture, making an art, or whether you stamped it on some kind of a phone, then that would basically be included. The second opinion, they said, well, picture taking in photography is not at all mimicking, because this is nothing but taking the shadows of the actual creation itself. So when I'm taking a photo of you, I'm not here drawing anything. The actual appearance of what you are in, basically the camera takes a shoot and looks at the shadows, the light, and that's what it basically would reflect on the phone, on the camera, on the picture, and etc. And therefore they said this is not whatsoever included in this hadith. Opinion number 4, they said, well, although you do have a point that yes, this isn't mimicking the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it's the actual creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but there is that borderline in where it's not the actual creation, and therefore you know that yes, you instilled the shadow, you instilled the light, etc., and that's what basically was imprinted on your camera, etc. But at the end of the day, whether that imprinting was done through your eyes, in where you basically saw the image and you drew it, or whether you actually had your camera do it, it should actually be included, because the word al-musawwar is a very comprehensive word, and therefore to make it be exclusive to one particular taswir is the word musawwar, sawara, to actually mimic. Yes, it is. So therefore that opinion said, therefore, you should actually understand that the word is including it, and therefore the term itself, therefore, can actually be a term that also defines even picture taking. So you could see those 4 differences of opinions, but then the fourth opinion, they basically said it would be permissible for things if they're not glorified. So for example, for a passport photo, or probably you're not putting it up on your wall, you're simply, keeping it for the record, for, for, let's say, security reasons, or even for the future, you just wanted to remember certain things, you're not glorifying it. So that, I'm just laying out the differences of opinions. What is the preponderant? The preponderant is, number 1, is that picture taking is not haram. It's not haram whether you're glorifying it or not glorifying it. At the end of the day, is that we don't actually have glorifying the pictures as part of our culture whatsoever. Hey, we're going to a restaurant, we take a photo, doing a selfie, etc. Then that's actually instilling the actual creation, and we're not drawing, we're not mimicking whatsoever here. And that, wallahu alam, is making it permissible. Yet, it's worthy of note that especially now with the ease of selfie and picture taking, we could see that studies are actually noting the impact of selfie and the impact of picture taking on the person. And I would really say cherish the moment and don't waste it trying to take pictures here and there. Cherish the moment that you guys are sitting together and don't spend too much time trying to just take pictures. This is my recommendation. Some people just find fun in picture taking, and especially women, especially the younger generation, Gen Z, and all of those right now. I guess, and studies would tell us that women are more obsessed with selfie than boys. Boys are more wanting to, I guess, expose their behavior than actually their image. Girls are more more fascinated, infatuated with showing their appearance, and that's actually affecting girls, because girls are always right now starting, at least the younger generation is right now lacking the confidence in their appearance, because they would always put all these filters, and it's affecting their confidence about their appearance, and of course it's resulting in depression and anxiety. How can we transition a child from drawing to not drawing living things? In general, explain to them, or let them draw, but tell them, draw them maybe sideways, or maybe draw them without having the complete character, at least a complete features. So that's how you can transition them. Taking in these differences of opinions is one method of actually learning and taking in the da'wah method to help them grow up and go up the ladder in learning how to embrace that. I know that some children will actually, and some people find in drawing as a way of, I guess, taking away the stress. I don't know how that is. I cannot even draw a stick person. I am so bad at drawing. Believe it or not, I am so horrible at art that I used to give my sister the art, and I will clean all the house. I will clean bathrooms. I will do all the work that she's supposed to be doing, but don't give me one piece of art to do. I am just not in art. I loved physics. I loved, all that world of science, but not art. Don't give me an art to do. I would do all the work for my sister, just do my art. And I would, yeah, I'm not saying do that. This is horrible for me to actually say and admit about myself. Don't tell anybody I told you this. All right. I really want to finish this, but I don't want to take too long. But next week, inshallah, we'll continue this portion of it, because not next week, sorry, tomorrow, we'll continue this portion of it, inshallah, because it's important to understand what actually takes la'na. Nas'allah al-afwa al-afiyah. So we'll see you all tomorrow, and we'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. Any other questions? Creativity. Yeah, I guess I lack that piece of it, right? Creativity. Don't tell anybody I told you this, but it's okay. Any questions, inshallah? Remember, you are being recorded. Assalamu alaikum. Any questions? Go ahead. You can unmute yourselves if you want. I know today's class was going into all these opinions. This is what I actually enjoy about fiqh. I absolutely enjoy going over the differences of opinions and all of that. I just love knowing how one text could actually have these differences of opinions, these different visions, and how they basically, what is the word that I could use? It's a type of creativity, really, type of creativity. And how did you actually think of it this way? How did you read it and understand it this way? I love and absolutely am fascinated with the differences of opinions between scholars. I enjoy it. You know, kind of like enjoying, what is my favorite cake now? I don't have a favorite, I
I mean,
guess.
it's just the subhanAllah, it's just seeing how different people think, and can interpret.
Absolutely. You know, when you, I think fiqh is the most thing that we really need to teach the Muslim community right now, because it teaches you diversity. It teaches you how to be open-minded. But we're not talking about open-minded where, yeah, I want to be inclusive to the LGBT. This is talking about open-minded in where I'm not going out of text. I'm basically understanding and I want to embrace the text itself. The scholars themselves actually had differences of opinions. So if the scholars themselves had differences of opinions, who am I to deny these great scholars and the way they actually had interpreted things? Who am I to deny Muslim, any Muslim that wants to embrace another scholar's opinion? So this actually creates diversity within the Muslim community. And of course, certainly when we would teach the ummah such such ilm, I think it creates more minds to think with creativity. And the most important creativity is not creativity in art, is actually creativity in understanding fiqh.
And then
Yeah.
that brings more unity too
Oh,
with the
absolutely. Absolutely. When you're embracing the diversity, you're creating a unity.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing in the masajid, you could see in the masajid, um they they would basically many times go into dispute because of lacking the ilm that this is a considerable opinion. As we say in the American accent, chill out, right? Chill out, calm down, take it easy. Some scholars actually said that. And if a scholar said that, who am I to stand up in front of al-Tabari and actually say, oh, that's silly, or that's too phonetic, that's too extreme? Who am I to actually say that? I'm here just laying out the scholars' opinions. I'm just here, laying out the ilm that they had derived, and therefore at least appreciate these scholars, at least appreciate and learn to at least what is the word that I could use, that at least learn how to respect and honor the effort, the ilm that they had invested. This is it. Inshallah, we'll see you all tomorrow. We're going to continue because we still didn't get to the ayah. This is going into one word in the ayah. Stay tuned. Tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Recording stopped.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.